This is AM Agenda. Thanks very much for your company. With me now, the Shadow Communications Minister Jason Clare. Mr Clare, you heard what Malcolm Turnbull's had to say. He's basically saying Labor's in no position to be criticising this independent cost-benefit analysis done of the NBN because you didn't even do one when in government.
Well, I heard what Malcolm Turnbull said this morning. He said that he never promised that he'd get Infrastructure Australia to do this report. But Kieran, I went back and checked. On the 16th of August last year, Malcolm Turnbull said, and I quote, and this is in IT News, "We're going to do a rigorous analysis. We'll get Infrastructure Australia to do an independent cost-benefit analysis." This is the point I'm making. If you're going to do a cost-benefit analysis, it's got to be independent. He promised 3 weeks before the election that he'd get the government body Infrastructure Australia to do it. What he's done instead is release a report today that's been done by former staff and former advisors and some of the most vociferous and trenchant critics of the NBN, and this is what you get as a result.
Mr Turnbull says his policy document, the government's policy document, was to have an independent inquiry, not one done by Infrastructure Australia. He said they didn't have the capacity to do it anyway.
Well, why did he say that on the 16th of August? All I'm doing is holding him to his words. Just like Tony Abbott promised no cuts to education and no cuts to health, and then he's broken all those promises. Malcolm Turnbull, 3 weeks before the election, said he'd get this independent body to do this report. What he's done instead is put the foxes in charge of the hen house. He's got people who hate the NBN to write a report saying how terrible it is.
Well, in terms of the report itself, though, you're talking about individuals like the former head of the Victorian Treasury Department. Why is someone of that capacity, of that calibre, not appropriate to do the job?
I'm making no criticism of Mr Vertigan, but I'm saying the report's tainted by the fact that it's been prepared and modelled by people who used to work for Malcolm, who used to advise Malcolm, or used to work for Mr Ergas. And when you do that, you're not going to get the independent report that Malcolm Turnbull promised.
But aren't you criticising them? Because you're saying that they haven't been able to come up with independent work.
Well, when you do a report like this, it all depends on the assumptions you put in, what sort of result you get, what you say it's going to cost, how long it will take to build, what sort of speeds people are going to need. And if you dive into the report, you'll see that it says that they expect that in a decade's time, then the median house is only going to require 15 megabits per second, or demand it. Well, already the majority of people on the NBN are ordering more than that. They're ordering 25 megabits, 50 megabits, 100 megabits. So the information in regards to demand's wrong. The report also says that they think building fibre to the home is going to cost more. Malcolm Turnbull said yesterday that the cost of it is going down.
I'll get to some of those specifics a bit later, but isn't Labor's criticism here undermined by the fact that when in government, announcing the biggest infrastructure project in the nation's history, you didn't do a cost-benefit analysis? Surely now you look back at that as a mistake.
This is the biggest and most important project in the country.
So there should have been an analysis done.
People want a real NBN. They don't want a second-rate Clayton's one like we're getting here. We had an expert panel look at it and recommend fibre to the home. We had McKinsey and KPMG do a detailed implementation study that said if you do this, then you'll get a return on investment. In other words, you'll get more money back than it costs to build. And then a business case, a corporate plan was put together by NBN Co that confirmed that. And that was verified by Treasury, by Finance, independent financial houses. My point today is if you're going to do a cost-benefit analysis, then make sure it's independent. Malcolm Turnbull promised that Infrastructure Australia would do it. But what we've been given instead is a report written by Malcolm's mates.
But your position would be a lot stronger today if your predecessor in this portfolio, when in government, actually did do a cost-benefit analysis.
Kieran, my major criticism
because
of
you
the
can have as many reports as you like, but if they haven't done an analysis based on the alternatives, what's...
Yeah. As I say, if you're going to do it, make it independent. But my big criticism of the NBN has been that it hasn't rolled out fast enough. And it's disappointing to say that the NBN is rolling out slower today than it was a year ago. When you look at the speed of the NBN rollout in the 10 weeks before the election, it was rolling out on average past 4,200 brownfield premises on average a week. Now, in the last 10 weeks, it's rolling past 3,600 brownfield premises a week. So the NBN is rolling out slower today than it was a year ago, and that's because Malcolm Turnbull, Tony Abbott and the government have been focused on political payback, been focused on 6 reviews worth $12 million, and Malcolm Turnbull's now got 6 reviews and no excuses. The people of Australia just want him to get on with it and build the NBN.
You pointed out the report suggests that the demand will be 15 megabits per second in many years from now, when the demand already and the acquisition is greater through NBN. Malcolm Turnbull's point was that often people buy more than they need, and that's what you're seeing, and hence the discrepancy between what this report suggests will be the actual demand, what people will use, as opposed to what they're buying at the moment. What do you say to that argument?
The whole model in the report is based on what it calls WTP, willingness to pay. And we've got hard data on that. We're seeing what people are willing to pay. And people are ordering higher speeds right now. There's a reason why Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Google in the United States, New Zealand, Indonesia as well, is rolling out superfast broadband, why they are building fibre to the home and fibre to the business, because they know that this is going to set their countries up for the future, and it'll be a disadvantage for countries that don't have this. And that's I guess the point I'd make here today, is that we're now going in the opposite direction.
I want to ask you about the counter-terrorism laws. There's a suggestion that Labor's not convinced on the reverse onus of proof. That's certainly the suggestion from Mark Dreyfus, that he's got some concerns about it. There's a chance then, with the support of the crossbench, that element of the counter-terrorism law could be blocked. You saw the poll yesterday, nearly 80% of people support this measure. Will Labor, in the end, err on the side of caution here?
Well, it's essential that our law enforcement agencies and our national security agencies have got the right powers and the powers that they need, and we will work closely and constructively with the government on this. We've received a number of briefings already. I expect that we'll receive more. There is a high bar to jump when you reverse the onus of proof. That doesn't mean that you never do it. I proposed laws when I was Home Affairs Minister of a case where you would do that. But there's a higher argument that you need to make and pass in order to do that. The government's talking about designated areas. We need more detail about what that means as well, to ensure that there are no unintended consequences of a law like this.
What about the metadata requirements? Yesterday, apparently, the wish list of the Attorney General's Department has gone to the telcos. Are you comfortable with what you're hearing, seeing on this as the Shadow Minister?
Well, again, metadata is very important. Law enforcement agencies and national security agencies use it all the time to keep Australians safe, and have for a long time. We need to make sure that we get these laws right. Unfortunately, George Brandis made a mess of it a couple of weeks ago. When they bring forward the legislation, we need to make sure that they know what they're talking about and that they get the model right.
Jason Clare, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kieran.
That's all for Amy.